Hey everyone, and welcome to World of Tanks Winter Showdown game mode that has just recently been added into the World of Tanks client. Right now you can play these tier 1 tanks in a separate little game mode, separate of the typical World of Tanks battles you're normally used to, and you can enjoy just, a fun little arcade game. If you played World of Karl way back, I think it was last year about this time, you'd be very familiar with the 8-bit battle that World of Tanks implemented. It's a fun little game mode where you're not too worried or stressed about making things happen, causing wins, losses, etc, etc. It's just a nice break from the norm, and you get to have a little fun and dunce around and get really cool little, I don't want to call them achievements, but medals and stuff out of it. And you can have fun with different tier 10 tanks that have been, well, not tier 10, but two of them are tier 10s, that were made into tier 1 little 8-bit models. So you have, starting off, we'll cover the different tanks, their abilities, their strengths, weaknesses, and general rules of how to use them, etc, etc. And I'll splice in a little gameplay into it as well of my battles here of each different tank. So we're going to start off with the Mammoth tank. The Mammoth is actually the T110E5, and it is, instead of a standard one-shot, heavy damage main battle tank, it is an 8-bit version of that main battle tank, but instead of a one-shot, it has a 3-round burst cannon. That 3-round burst cannon does average about 150 damage to 250 damage. I was seeing anywhere in the 200s, give or take, and it fires pretty much rapidly on top of each other. You can solidly say that you're going to get about 600 damage out of every trigger pull. Now, this is very useful for fighting enemies, as well as it makes an excellent tunneling tank. So you see the red brick walls and the gray brick walls? The red brick walls you can shoot through, you can tear them down, it's one shot a piece to take them out. The gray brick walls you cannot go through. So you just get to shoot those all you want, but more or less they're there as hard, solid cover you can use. But again, red brick walls totally go through. Now there's also trees and forests that you can hide in, but we'll get to that later. So, the Mammoth tank, like I said, has nice decent damage looking at the 600 range for every trigger pull if you land all 3 shots. They are spread out about a half second per shot, so you'll need to work on your timing there and what targets you want to fire at. The reload on the back end of that trigger pull is not too bad. I believe it was right about 8 seconds. The in-game footage can probably cover that, no problem, and you'll see how quickly that reloads. So it gives you time to quickly pull that trigger, do a little bit of damage, back off. So with the Mammoth tank though, it is equipped with 5,000 hit points. The armor is irrelevant. To be honest, all the tank's armors are irrelevant. You're going to pin no matter what you do. It's just straight damage, so there's no modules, nothing to worry about there. I'm pretty sure I didn't see any fire popping up either. So with that being said, you're not going to get to equip any gear on the tanks that you really are going to have to worry about. And of course, if you wanted to equip any consumables, the only thing that's going to matter is probably just the food and gasoline. So if you wanted to equip those to make your tank just a little better, go for it. But in all honesty, it's 100% tank crew, and it's kind of just a dunce around game. You're not going to get too much squeaked out of it that's different from just standard playing it normally as is. So the Mammoth tank is your main brawler. He's meant to go up there, fight it out, duke it out, get in people's faces, and take that center point and make stuff happen. So he's your go-to if you want to brawl it out, if you want to do, your damage and play a heavy tank as normal, go with the Mammoth. And also, they're great for tunneling through walls. Totally recommend it if you're trying to get from A to B, or and that locations, not capture points obviously. But if you want to capture points and stuff, he's your go-to tank. Again, he's the main battle tank of the group. He's your brawler. He's your, for lack of better terms, he's your tank to use. Alright, so moving on from the Mammoth, we have the Polar Bear, which is based off the AMX tank destroyer there. So you're going to see the Foch 155 sort of looking tank. Maybe the AMX 48 if you really wanted to stretch it, but it's more based on the Foch. So this is your tank destroyer. He is your main damage dealer. He's going to be doing close to 1,000 damage, give or take. The shell reads is doing 750 to 1,250, but I was seeing about 1,000 damage. That was a reliable number I could count on when I was firing this cannon at people. Its reload time is not bad. It's about, 12 seconds, give or take. So it's not a bad shot, maybe closer to 10 seconds, but either which way, people would come around that bend and I'd light them up and you would see massive numbers appear over their head and then quickly retreat. This is a tank, it actually moves fairly fast for what it is. I would have figured this thing would be a little slower, but I was able to chase people around, do some pretty nasty damage, and of course this thing is one of those tanks where you can actually take advantage of those bushes I mentioned earlier. You can hide in those bushes, lay in wait, and then when people come break through a wall, you light them up. Of course, this can only be pulled off maybe once, maybe twice before you're spotted and your position's completely gone. But it's fun to just sit there and lay in wait because you can see where people are tunneling through. You know they're coming out there. So you sit there in those bushes, wait for them to tunnel through, and then just surprise them with a really large shell, scaring them off in a way, especially if it's another one of these tank destroyers or if it's one of the scouts, because these tank destroyers only have 2,500 hit points. So they need to be used really carefully because 2-3 hits from another polar bear is going to take you out, or if a mammoth wants to just run all over you, it probably could. It's doing 600 damage to your 2,500 hit points. It might be able to out DPS you if it's quick, and also the accuracy on the move of the mammoth, or the polar bear rather, is not as keen and sharp as you'd hope it to be. If you're having to traverse or if you're having to run stuff down, there's a very good chance you can miss unless you're locked on or zoomed all the way in and placing your shots really well. So this tank definitely is meant to be back a bit from the mammoths. Let the mammoths take the hits, you dish out the heavy damage around them and over top of them. And so you're going to be your long-range sniper on the team. This tank, again, fun if you want to see those high numbers, great if you're going to use situations where you're bottlenecking people. I wouldn't go brawl out with this thing. You can if you have support, especially if you have another polar bear with you. If you tag team with polar bears, ooh man, you're going to see some people run away or die rather quickly, because that's a lot of damage that you're pushing out with 2 tanks. So team up with another polar bear or with another mammoth, and you should be good running this thing, sniping people and doing lots of damage. Now, finally, we have the Arctic Fox. Now, a lot of people scoff at the damage. It's only doing 150 to 250 damage, but it does reload fairly fast. Now, the thing with the Arctic Fox is it's your small scout, so it can move pretty fast, going a little over 20 kilometers faster than the polar bear. Now, it only has 1,500 hit points, so that is something to be aware of, is the fact that you're not going to be dishing out a lot of damage to your hit point pool. You're really meant for something completely different that I didn't address yet. You see how there's the AP rounds for every tank, and then there's the RP gold rounds? They're called repairing rounds. Those gold rounds actually heal a certain amount of damage per tank shell to every shell you hit your teammates with. Now, don't think that just because you're firing those repairing rounds you can't do damage to the enemy. They will still do damage. It's just they're also meant to heal as well. So don't be afraid to equip those if you don't mind throwing out the gold or credits that you cost to purchase them with. It's not that big of a deal, and it's actually really cool because you as a light tank there can actually assist your team and really do some major stuff by getting them in the position to help out and re-heal tanks as you go. So about those healing shells, now every tank can equip them and they will do the same amount of damage as an AP shell to the enemy. The downside is they don't do the same amount of repair as they do damage. So for the Mammoth, you're looking at maybe what, about 100 repair at max? For the polar bear, you're looking at about what, 250 repair? But the Arctic Fox, that is your primary healer. You wouldn't think it, but this tank does 150 to 200 repair per repair shell, which is the exact same damage that it would do from a standard AP shell. And with its rate of fire, you can typically keep up with a Mammoth's output of damage. So if you're sitting behind a friendly tank, such as a polar bear or a mammoth, you could generally out-heal a mammoth or get at least close enough where his damage is not going to be very significant while your tank is sitting there dishing out more damage to him in return. So as long as you position yourself so that you're not getting hit, you can really extend the lifespan of another teammate. Now, I did this several games, and it really turned the tides of a battle, sitting behind a polar bear, healing him up from fighting a mammoth, or sitting behind a mammoth and healing him up against multiple mammoths. Many, many times you can say that this tank really can save the day if you position yourself not to get shot, and you just sit there solely focused on healing as opposed to dishing out damage. Now, you're not going to get shown on any stats for this in terms of the battle report, but in your own personal stats, you get to see that you get a nice little damage healed stat, which I've easily crested in the the tens of thousands and even crested somewhere in 18,000 one battle. That was pretty significant to turning the tides of a battle if you can dish out as much healing as you can. Yes, it's costly and you're not going to earn a lot of money and credits out of it, but you know what? It's kind of fun to go for the win and kind of fun to see just how long you can keep a tank going. If you team up with the right person and he just keeps dishing out damage and you keep healing him, you can see some pretty sky-high numbers for his damage and you'll see some pretty sky-high numbers for your healing. And usually the people will thank you because it's something that they know that they're getting healed and they know that because of you, they're able to sit out there longer and do that much more damage. Now, that doesn't bother me in the slightest because I've always played healers in MMOs, like in World of Warcraft and whatnot else. So being a healer in this game, not bad at all. Kind of entertaining to sit there and just see a polar bear go from 1,000 hit points left all the way back up to 2,500 and keep charging forward, dishing out damage. Or see that mammoth sitting there taking on 3 other mammoths, slowly whittle them all down, and then finally make that push to take them all out once his other teammates get around, and he's just sitting there at about half health because I've been healing him the whole time. So it's kind of fun to run that healing class. It's very, very interesting, and you wouldn't normally think it. But yeah, so one thing to keep in mind is that Arctic Fox, while you think you can get out there and get behind tanks and everything else, yeah, the turn rate on most tanks is fast enough they can get around and take you out no problem. The excelling point of the Arctic Fox is it can hop behind a tank, heal it up all day long, and not get hit, and in turn really change the tides of battle. So that's something you want to pay attention to there. Now, the battle as a whole, similar to normal battles, except, well, I should say, it's similar to most normal encounter battles. You have 2 teams starting on opposite sides of the field. You charge towards the center and encounter each other and take each other out. Victory conditions are the same, either defeat or by capping out the center point. You gotta be careful though, around that center point there are water holes that everybody can fall into, so you don't want to fall in the water, otherwise you'll be knocked out of the battle. You can push people into the water, which is even entertaining if you can make it happen. So it's not something that you want to try because you can risk falling in yourself, but if you make it happen, it is quite enjoyable and quite laughable. I think that covers just about everything in terms of the Winter Showdown game mode. Definitely check it out. Again, you can find all those tanks as tier 1s in your garage. All you gotta do is just hunt down the tier 1s. Either the American, the French, or the Soviet tanks. They're in there and you should easily find them. Again, this game mode lasts probably a couple weeks, so you should see it exit the stage somewhere in the middle of February. There are some cool little awards that you can get out of it, so definitely go and check that out. And then that way you can have them on your record until the end of time, and you won't ever lose them. Nice little awards, and plus you do get some money out of it for completing all the different missions. You'll have to check them out as well. They're in your mission folder, and you can actually get some really cool stuff, including a lot of money and some other little trinkets and whatnot else. For completing 25 wins, you get crew experience of 25,000, you get 250,000 credits, and you get, you know, fun enjoyment out of the game type. There's also different missions for causing damage that get you some money. There's different missions for doing team healing. There's stuff for doing battles as a platoon and causing total damage of amounting to 1,500. And there's damage for each individual type of tank as well. So a bunch of different stuff. And again, if you complete a battle, you get the Operation Winter Award that you can view in your nice little service record there. That should be in there forever, just like how you got stuff out of the world of Karl way back in the day. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I was able to record this on a press account, thanks to World of Tanks for giving that up to me so that I was able to get you guys some cool footage. Anyway, if you guys want to check it out, there's a link down below in the description where to get the game and to check out more information as well. It's the little bit.ly link down there. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one.